Okay, so I think we can go forward and see beyond this painting what is going on. Okay, as I said, Caravaggio was painting in the 16th century in the era called High Renaissance. High Renaissance is defined by its ideal beauty of human physics, linear composition, and perfect composition of the picture, like the world famous paintings that we know. And then after High Renaissance comes to mannerism, when the people are expressing themselves. So this is the time that artists could actually express their artistic talents and give some more context, artistic context, and artistic impulses in their works. And as you can see, it has exaggerated forms, complex compositions in compared to other works, and even sometimes super exaggerated or very dramatic exposed. But in one church in Rome, you can see a painting like this that can haunt you. It makes you very vulnerable when you look at it. You kind of feel involved. And this is the moment when Jesus chooses Matthew to be his disciple. And then Jesus is not clear in the picture, as you can see it here. Jesus, we can only see his hand in the shadow and the beat of his face. So it gives him a very mysterious look. And then Matthew, as Jesus is calling him, he's shocked somehow against the literal text, which is in Bible, because in Bible it's written that he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector booth. Follow me, he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. But somehow in this painting, the second part has been changed by the painter. Somehow the moment of hesitation in Matthew, as we can see. Jesus is calling him with his hand and his half visible face, and he is shocked, kinda asking, who, me? The other two guys beside him are they are his colleagues, so they are tax collectors, and they are very in their materialistic world, and they are just considering money in their life. As we can see, they are so busy, they don't even sense a Holy Spirit or a holy presence in the room. And the other two child that we can see here, they are the symbols of Matthew's indecisiveness. One wants to run away and one wants to go towards Jesus, or at least looks at Jesus. But the most important element of this painting is the presence of light in this painting. The light gives the painting its character. This is a technique which is famous by chiaroscuro, and then and nowadays we can see it in photography, in graphics, but actually the origins of this technique goes back to Renaissance, where the element of light is very important. It has a very divine presence in this painting, as you can see. The source of the light is not Jesus. The light comes from outside, from a divine place from outside, and light directly at Matthew. In this painting, the genius of this painting is that for the first time, one of the first time, the painter disregarded the background. Unlike other Renaissance paintings that you have to show the depth of the background to show how these people are powerful and coming from a very deep place in history or time. But here, the painter decided to use a solid background, as if that he put his objects in position that they can be on the stage and presented to us. They pop up in a form of 3D. It is the same concept that the painter uses in other paintings as well. As you can see, again, it's sort of a stage photography, which is a very odd technique for that time. This is the moment that David kills Goliath. And as you can see, the subject is like an actor standing on a stage, or crucifixion of St. Paul. The same technique happened. But my favorite painting of this painter is the calling of Jesus. And this is the moment that they're arresting Jesus Christ. And it's haunting because it's as if that you are watching in this moment in the street. It's as if that you are involved in it. The shields are so bright that you can even hear their tickling. St. John is fleeing, and Judas is kissing Jesus, the friend that he betrayed. But you know, these sort of paintings, kind of hyper-realistic paintings, was the exact same thing that Catholic Church wanted back then. You see, in that time of history, it was the peak of rivalry between Catholic Church and reformist, Protestant reformist, and anti-reformist movement from the Catholic Church in the Council of Trent decided that art should only serve to strive to help Christians understand and reconnect with their faith. So in a way, Christian Church wanted illiterate people to connect with biblical stories through paintings, through real human figures, realistic paintings which can show us and what has happened and how we can connect to them. So when you explore all these paintings from that time, you can see that there is a presence, a very humanistic presence of all these divine figures. And the key to the success for at least this painting, painter, was that he was using real models as biblical figures for the first time. And it was very controversial, but all of his figures were real people, real models, which could give human face to these paintings. So you can see a very interesting correlation between a political decision to bring art, Christian divine art, to Christian public scene and knowledge and educating Christians through paintings which are realistic, which are able to connect with viewers. And it is very interesting that the painter, as you can see in this, for example, painting, it is so realistic that Jesus asks you to try to test his wound and see if it's real or not. So somehow the painter brings the passion to the passion of Jesus. But the painter himself is a very interesting figure. He was a very sinful soul. He was caught for burglary, theft, robbery, and even rape. In 1607, in a duel, he killed a guy, and he was facing prison, but he fled Rome and he was moving around Italy for 7 years, and he died for 3 years, and he died in 1610 at the age of 38. You see, again, it is for me a paradox between someone who is telling the story, someone who is telling us how to behave or wants to promote and educate us with Christian values, but he himself is not following those values. And it is interesting because probably Caravaggio was the person whom had the biggest influence in teaching all these Christian stories and values to people throughout the history in generations. But he himself was just a tool to explain, but he himself was a sinful soul for his time. And it's interesting in this painting, The Calling of Christ, he painted even himself. This is the painter himself in the painting, looking at the moment that they are taking Jesus Christ and holding a light. My interpretation is that the painter tries to show us that he is the presenter of the story. He is telling the story, not anyone else. We have to look at this story through his eyes. So we reviewed one of the most important Renaissance paintings together, and I'm wondering on your piece of paper if anything has changed in terms of the way that you were interpreting this painting now when you know a little bit of historical or symbolic elements behind it. Maybe I can give you another 3 minutes to write another sentence again. And if there is any volunteer who wants to talk, we can do that. And for the next painting, as it was said, you can divide yourself in your groups and then discuss within your groups.
So as of now, I can't set the breakout room. I'm sorry, because
okay.
Yeah, but because it's a setting I have to set before, and
no problem.
I have
We can continue like this.
Yeah, but we can have a break later, halfway,
Sure.
and
Sure.
then we can come back to the room and into the breakout rooms. So
Sure.
right now, individual. Thank you.
Does anyone want to share anything?
Can I share?
Sure.
So at first, when I looked at it, I tried to find some display of power, and what came to mind was actually like the older tax collector, because it looked like he was helping the young guy who just sat over the table and was kind of observant. So I just wrote the man who gently observes the coins.
Okay.
And then after hearing the story and kind of trying to wrap my head around it again, I would say that the power might lie in the choice that Jesus gave Matthew. So like the two kids that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So he now has the power to embrace Christ or to run away.
I see, but it is an interesting interpretation because as we explore the text, the world of gospel, it's clear that in the real story, or the one that is has been claimed that it's a real story, Matthew didn't have this indecisive moment, but the painter decided to turn it to an indecisive moment, and now you're interpreting actually that moment as the element of power. So we can see how the artist or the person who is telling us the story is the only person probably who can determine what we should interpret as power. Anyone else? If not, we can move on to the next one. Okay. The next one is also a famous one. You probably know it, The Death of Socrates by Jean David. It was painted in 1787. So again, you can write one sentence. I'll probably give you 2 minutes. What comes to your mind and what do you see in this painting which resembles the element of power? Okay, so as I said, it was completed in 1787, a very critical moment in history. And the painting itself is an exemplar of the neoclassic era of France. Sorry. In this photo, in this painting, the moment of Socrates' death has been depicted, and the scene is very clear. As you can see, it's very sharp. The moment that Socrates is taking the glass of hammock, and it's a poison that kills him at the end of this scene. An angle of light coming to the room from one direction and goes to the other direction in a very geographic form, which makes it very clear and peaceful to watch. As you can see, the background is sort of a marble and very clean and perfectly clean. The way that the clothes are formed and shaped in this corner of the painting is breathtaking.
Mahan, your microphone is a bit like it's
Oh.
friction, so a lot of noise.
I am sorry. I think. Is it better now? Hello?
Better. It's better.
Okay.
Mhm.
Then the moment that you're seeing is the moment that the Athenian court has been sentenced Socrates to death because of promoting wrong ideas and corrupting youth in Athens. And although, according to Plato, Socrates had the possibility to flee Athens, he decided to stay and face the death, as he was seeing it a very, very positive thing for his immortal soul to face the death for a greater good and following his principles. So this is a very heroic moment that the painter tried to paint. At that time, Socrates was around 70 years. So definitely he was not in such a shape and form with all these muscles, a very young, muscular body. And Socrates was famous for being very ugly and very hard to look. But in this painting, again, Socrates is painted in a very good way. As you can see, this glass is placed in the center of this painting. And the Socrates, as I said, it seems that he doesn't even care at all about the fact that he is going to die. It is very important to know that at 1778, when this painting was painted, 2 years later, in 1789, we have the French Revolution. And 5 years prior to this painting was completed, we had the American Revolution, or American War of Independence. So the combination of good and evil, the person who is giving the glass to Socrates in red, the Socrates who is taking the glass himself in white, and the rest of people looking at him. As I said, the French Revolution was taking place 2 years after this painting, and somehow the painter wanted to show the similarities between the ancient Athens, in which Socrates came with his revolutionary ideas, and nowadays in the world. As I said, we had the American Revolution 5 years prior to that painting, and Thomas Jefferson, interestingly, was actually present in unveiling of the work in Paris in 1787. So you can see that the painter with neoclassic classicism, he wants to bring back the idealism which was in ancient Roman art, the obsession with masculine perfect physique, and lines which can show a very, very decided nation or decided individual. In another masterpiece of David, we can see the same elements which are opposite to its dominant Rococo style, which was showing the luxurious life of the monarchs and the lavish life of the bourgeoisie. And it is somehow rebellious against that sort of art, which is not strong, it is not in favor of people, and it doesn't do great things. Here, as you can see, the difference is clear. We have people, individuals, mostly men, who are doing important things or doing strong things. And in the other hand, we have weak people who are in very, very, they are ruled by passion, and they are weak, and they are in a curvy forms, whereas here we have angular geometry forms. But if you want to interpret this painting, we can interpret it from right to left and left to right, but we start from right to left. We have Socrates' friends who are mourning for him, and we have Socrates who is standing strong in the middle. He's pointing up to the other world, and he is proud of going there, and he's willing to take the glass. The glass is in the very center of the painting. It shows the importance of that moment, because it is literally few seconds before that glass kills the greatest man in history. We have the person who is handing the glass to Socrates, but he is shameful, he doesn't look, it shows that no one is happy. We have an old man looking away and doesn't want to be involved, and he is disengaged. And we have the name of the painter here, Jean David. The most important student of Socrates at that time, present at the death of Socrates, was Crito, and here we can see it. He is, and painter wants to somehow tell us that although he is not strong as Socrates to go and meet dead, meet the death proudly, but at least he has some compassion, and he's by his side grabbing his leg. But there is another way of interpreting this painting, which is from left to right. Oh, by the way, I think I missed the background. At the end, as you can see in the hall, we can see Socrates' wife going away, somehow an element of reality which goes away and continues its life. But there is another way of interpreting this painting, which is from left to right. The interesting factor that you should know is that this old guy, whom we can see here, is actually Plato. Plato was a student of Socrates who started to write his dialogues with Socrates and gave birth and gave character to Socrates. And through him, he teaches his ideas. And interestingly, at the time of Socrates' death, Plato was a young boy in the circle of Socrates, and he was not even present at the death of Socrates. But the painter put him here against the whole scene, as if that the whole story is a projection of Plato's memory, which happened in the past. And Plato is disengaged with this reality, and he is just writing, as we can see, with the paper and everything beside him, that he just remembers, and he just think about the greater time which we can have it again, or maybe it happened in the past and we have to recreate it again. And it is interesting, particularly, to see that when this painting was painted, the time that new ideas were needed, new values were gave birth, like égalité, fraternité, liberté, from French Revolution, and then in America with the American Revolution, and a few years later, the emancipation in South America and revolutions in South America. So the whole world was on the verge of new events taking place and people wanting to change the course of history, which it changed dramatically. Probably the end of 18th century was the most important moments of history, which the whole world changed. After that, we have Spring of Nations in Europe, which gave birth to many European nowadays states. So we can see that again here, a painter tried to bring back some elements from good old days, from classic time, and try to show that decided people are the strong ones, undecided people are the weak ones, and we need to go back to idealism, to the time that we had values, and we have to stick to our values, and it is good to die for our values. And this is somehow against the whole art scene which was taking place in that time. And as you can see, powerful and influential politicians like Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of America, were in favor of such an art. And it's again showing us the importance of who is telling us the story and how much of him and his political agendas are behind it. I told you that in one place we can see the name of the painter, and this is where the Plato is sitting, but the painter also put his initials beneath Plato. In this painting, we have two places in which we can see the painter's name. And this is a very important symbol, that as if the painter is Plato, and he is in Plato's position, and he is somehow looking at everything from the lens of idealism, and he is somehow idealized and wants to have the same people or the same person or the same individual to come back to the world and save us. Yeah, so that was the Death of Plato by Jean de Ville. Again, I ask you to look at it again after you heard what you heard, and write one sentence. And maybe a volunteer can share.
Yeah. And we strongly encourage you to vocalize your sharing. Maybe beginning is a bit shy, but now it's time to warm up. It'd be nice for Mahan to get some feedback of your thoughts as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any idea? Anyone wants to share anything?
I could share.
Sure. Go ahead.
One thought I had was that like when that painting was made, the world was also being colonized at the same time.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Thomas Jefferson, he was also very much inspired by Aristoteles, the state, when he wrote the foundation of what became the United States of America.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the context of like, yeah, the world being colonized and that everybody in this painting is white. That there is a lot of research that shows that in ancient Greece, it wasn't as white as people believe. Like the historian Martin Bernal almost thinks that Athens was an like African colony, like Egyptian colony. So yeah, just that power dynamic as well, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really happy that you shared that vision, because you are right. Indeed, I am looking for a painting, another painting to show you that what you say exactly is accurate. But you're right that during writing the Bill of Rights, the founding fathers particularly look at the great minds in their views of all time. So they looked at Aristotle, Plato, and also even the writings of Cyrus the Great, the Persian Empire, and they use their ideas. In a way, they believe that they are bringing the best of humanity, so they have to look at the greatest minds of humanity as well. But in another way, the Western art, because it is telling and representing the Western history, it is inherently very biased in this way. So a very good example is this photo in this painting. If I can, I don't know how can I switch sharing. Okay, this is easier. I don't know if you know this painting called Manifest of Destiny, and this is the time that in America America purchased a lot of states in Midwest America, and with the purchase of the state of Louisiana, and then with some wars that they had with Mexico and French, and finally gaining all the states in America, and the concept of America ocean to ocean. Together with that, another concept emerged called Manifesto Destiny, which was saying that, yeah, if you're going ocean to ocean, we are bringing development and civilization to the West. So the whole concept of Wild West was created after that. So as you can see in this painting, the sun goes from the east to the dark west, and with that, a goddess of civilization bringing electricity, telecommunication, literacy, a book, law, a tram, couches, farmers. And on the other hand, in the West, as you can see, there are a bunch of buffaloes. There are some Native Americans running away. And interestingly, as we know nowadays that climate issues are at the top of our priorities, back then, as you can see, animals or wildlife was considered as an obstacle, and they're also running away. And as the goddess of development is moving, we can see a dead animal beneath her leg. So it is very interesting for me how they can be political and how they can show all those elements that you mentioned in one single painting. We have 2 other paintings to show. I think it's a good time if you want to have a short break, and then we can continue with the other 2.
Sure. So I would have to maybe invite you to take a break and leave the room. So then when you re-enter, then I'm able to do a breakout room, because I think during the setting, it was had to be done before you enter. So yeah, I'm very honest with technical issues.
Sure. Would 5 minutes be good for everyone?
Yeah. Can you re-enter the room in 5? Thank you, guys.